Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
That's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be normal.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Happy new month. We are into the 6th month of the year. Today is a Monday, the 2nd day of June 2025. I welcome you to this edition of the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga, and on behalf of Digitalk Television, I'm always here having a conversation with you, asking pertinent questions and, of course, seeking a better Uganda. We have these conversations to mold a future, not for us alone, but for the next generation to come. As we are here in Kampala, we are gearing up for the Uganda Matters Day that is going to be commemorated or celebrated tomorrow, as many people flock the Namugongo Matters Shrine to remember people who gave their lives, who ultimately sacrificed themselves for an idea that they believed in. Various people are in the country, and as we speak, I think over 67,000 people have already arrived at Namugongo Matters Shrine. Tomorrow, the Lugazi Diocese will be leading that particular conversation, and we'll be telling you some of the things that will be happening right there. And of course, in Barra District, the Democratic Party, as we speak right now, has had its delegates conference. There is a stalemate. I think nobody has been declared yet as president of the Democratic Party, following a rather volatile and vigorous process, as we saw a couple of fist fights here and there earlier on in the day. And of course, yesterday we saw some candidates arguing that their names have been omitted from the ballots, so they are not actually taking part in that particular program. So it is the first time that we are seeing the Democratic Party actually have such issues or such volatility, especially as we gear up for the elections. And today it has been eventful because some legislators or people who want to actually vie for positions in their political parties, especially for Member of Parliament and the upcoming elections, have picked nomination forms at the National Resistance Movement headquarters. We've seen a couple of individuals. I saw the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Mong. I saw the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and a couple of individuals really picking nomination forms to be able to vie for the position of a member of parliament or local councillor for the NRM ticket. I think it was the same case at the National Unity Platform. We shall be talking about these particular issues. And maybe lastly, definitely not least, is the death of Cedric Babu. This is a gentleman who was a journalist, a sportsman, but also affiliated in the political camp, as he was the vice president of the PLU, yes, PLU, the new formation headed by Muhoozi Kainerugaba. And of course, many messages have been reiterated about this gentleman, but also we have seen a rather bad, manners where we saw some people actually celebrating the death of Cedric. What does this mean? That when people actually pass on, it is a sad note, but some people are actually taking it lightly or in a rather humorous manner. What has degenerated Uganda's politics up to that particular level? We shall be hinting on those particular issues. So what I want you to do is just send us your message, comment or query, and I'll be reading some of these messages on our social media platforms. That is at The Alternative Uganda, at Digitalk TV, and do not forget to subscribe. Every time you subscribe, we actually get more viewers, and we prepare better for you, bring you better guests who will give you the knowledge that you actually want. Remember, we're streaming on either platform, that is on Facebook, but also on YouTube, so you can actually get one that is at the comfort of your convenience. This evening, I have Professor Rogers Barigayomwe. He is a professor, as you've heard, but also the chairperson of the Labour Party in Uganda. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And
Good evening.
And I have Honorable Pollar Awich, retired major, counsel, but also the director, external affairs at the National Resistance Movement. You're most welcome, Honorable.
Good evening and greetings to my viewers. Happy to be with my OB of the Great Ntare School. And we're in the same house, Pioneer House. Great mentor. I'm proud of him.
I like how the Ntare people always like to, reiterate their school, but you're most welcome, sir. Last, definitely not least, is Joseph Ochieno, chairperson or president, one of the presidents at the UPC. I still have a problem with that particular submission, but he's a senior citizen and also a political scholar and analyst in this country. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be with my two colleagues from Ntare. Ntare is a good school, no doubt. It's a good school, but it's the school that has given this country huge amount of problems, but
we want to solve them.
That said, they need to know that had it not been for Mwiri, they would not be for where they are. But it's a pleasure.
So Mwiri in Ntare?
No, Mwiri made the nation, and Mwiri makes the nation. And by the way, Mwiri still leads in terms of the national political schools, which apparently, and I didn't know that until sometimes last week, we are the most successful school when it comes to politics. And I think they did a survey that includes the most number of members of parliament who've gone through Mwiri in one way or another.
Ntare has brought two presidents.
No, Ntare has brought two very difficult.
To the credit of Mwiri, I was
two very difficult guys. But
I saw the magazine recently. He was our chairman, Awich Pollar. And in that magazine, President Obote was with President Museveni, then a student. So he's right to say that President Obote mentored. Just like when I'm with my senior, when you have a senior, you always...
He's always a senior.
Senior, yes.
Thank you so much,
but if you don't mind, as an introductory remark, yes, the young professor, before we came on air, makes a very important point that Comrade Awich is his mentor. And we're joking about it, but I think we should take it to the air because it's a predominantly young audience. This is a very Mwiri thing, but I'm also delighted that our colleagues in Ntare did the same, particularly Comrade Awich. The idea that we can have, by the traditional boarding schools, well, boarding schools generally can be very bullish, and bullying can take place. Can also be very competitive, and sometimes can also be very socially classy. Okay. But major popular traditional national schools, which you guys don't know, like Mwiri, Ntare, Namilyango, Budo, those kind of schools, they can be very also very academically challenging and very discriminative. So those who thrive in academic terms, you may even be from an average social class without prejudice, but you'll be up there because you're the champion in physics. Socially, if you're son or daughter of so-and-so, again, you thrive. If you're Namagunga and things like that.
Right.
It means, therefore, that an average student to come in and navigate the spaces, sometimes it's very difficult. Right. So to find students who deliberately then identify, and I don't want to talk about my own experiences, identify leaders like which did and others in Tare to create space in which young people who would others be bullied or marginalized or suppressed is something that is worth noting. Yeah.
But I think this is a valid point, and it is worth for the consumption of the viewers. Because maybe somehow because of the nature of Ntare or my nature, but it needed a selfless, deliberate move to bring out by accident. For example, I was in HSC, they were in S1, S5 they were in S1. But I identified key senior ones who would ordinarily, like a congressman is saying, be blocked by the seniors. I identified them and deliberately integrated them in the debate because I was a chairman. And these young people, I moved with them and they came up even in real life. Rogers is a professor. Kasiete Simon, who became a star in NTV and NBS, was with them. Tarema Jotham, who became a spokesperson in the Electoral Commission, same class. There was one called Dahudi Kagambirwe, unfortunate passed on, he was one. Sharaza Mwewaze became HP, and then Dance and Kamukamu. I brought up all these guys deliberately. If I'd left them, the other top class people would have blocked them. Yeah. And deliberately, to the point that they were the star. Within 1 or 2 years, they were the star debaters, and they had to let them go. They had to let them now completely shine. I'm so proud of that. And it had to be a selfless decision to take it deliberately, not by accident.
Exactly, the power of mentorship, really. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I'm going to start with you, Professor. How are you and how's your week? How was your last week and how's your new week?
The week it started well, Monday, with my senior mentor. I know he's a very busy man, to get him. But I reflect on that and I say, if this nation, the forefathers, because in the same school he's talking about is where Yoweri Museveni Kaguta was, and a classmate of my own father. And these two have disappointed. And I will tell you, on the national level, President Museveni hasn't prepared us or transition. Then my own father, my biological father, at his age, both of them are above 80. He has not written a will. Up to now, we don't know what will happen after. Yet, me, I'm a man of 40 years, not only in 40s. I've prepared my children, I've given a will, they have medical insurance.
They feel they're still strong enough. Why do you want, when you put someone into writing wills, you're like telling them you're about to go.
No,
they feel strong enough.
Am I about to go? I'm entirely strong, but it's just like that. So our senior colleagues also, unlike Awich Pollar, have let us down. Up to now, we even don't know what will come in the next 10 years when they are 90. It's a disappointment. Our senior OBs, together with one across the other country, Honorable His Excellency Kagame, they should mentor. That is not entire spirit. Entire spirit, these people, and you know, President Museveni has mentored many young people. You see, cabinet, big part of it from the same school. But right now, he's unfortunate if Mr. Awich started fearing me. Yet, whatever I get successfully, is his fruit.
I get you.
And I'm honored. That's why I'm saying I'm honored.
Is that what is there? Are they fearing you, or is there a kind of a fear between the old and the young? How is the relationship? It's
what we are seeing in the nation. Even today, good enough is from the NRM Secretariat. He will tell you, as people are picking cards and everything, the old people are fearing the young people. And you know, unfortunately, if they feared the young people, you know, sometimes you can fear them. But now they're even fearing us, their own children. Do you get it?
Yes,
it's a demonic thing. I cannot understand it. When me, I fear my own son, It's so demonic.
But sorry, but you've used that diction many times. Satanic, I've heard you use the word satanic. You've used demonic. Why are you affiliating the national resistance movement with such words?
The devil comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. These people, as if, I'm telling you, I feel these days as if they've come to kill us, their own children. And that's the demand. After I get out of these studios, I feel like they want to finish me off. So, but just saying that you people, I think you are killing our generation. You should make us ready. Like I've told you, my mentor here. I feel, I'm like, for example, you'll tell you I'm a professor of politics and law. I have no space. Have you had me operate anywhere in the public? Then you find mediocre people. Yeah? Because they are putting on a yellow t-shirt and a yellow pant. They are, is it director, a professor? And I'm like, do these mentors of mine fear me? Can't I want to contribute to my nation. A professor, what will I do with my professorship?
Okay. In fact, I think your week was rather a bit strained. But how did you also comment on tomorrow is Martyrs' Day?
Yes.
And we are remembering people who gave their ultimate sacrifice, which is their life, for something they believed in. As you tell us your message for this, how can this even be emulated in the first place? Can we see Martyrs in 2025?
I am talking to the preachers of tomorrow, and we are most disappointed by you religious people who are going to lead those religious prayers in Namugongo. These martyrs died for the nation. They were Christian martyrs. They can be political martyrs. They died, and real dying, giving away their lives because of a good thing, which we are all enjoying. But these religious people now don't want even to tell the basics. They will have all these honorable members who are holding the nation by hostage. But they will not say anything relevant to what is happening in the country. They will not tell the leaders that you guys were going into possible genocide. They are not going to tell them. Because the one I talked about, satanic money, has also reached the churches. So it's unfortunate. If we could emulate these matters, if it means these things we are saying, by the way, can get you, you might find a drone down there. They make you feel like a political matter. But now the religious leader, if all Ugandans would reflect on those matters, and then we sacrifice for the future generation. Even if we are gone, but the future generation has to enjoy the fruit. So that is my message for Martyrs' Day.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Pollar Awich, as you give us your opening remarks, please also reiterate on Martyrs' Day tomorrow. What do you think about this particular day and your message?
Okay. Now, first of all, your general question always to all of us is about the week. And I guess that you are referring to the past week. You want us to summarize?
To you, how was it? And
Yes.
as you enter this new week?
Now, my last week was good. I had the opportunity to fly to Tanzania to be with the CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi. CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi is a Swahili coinage meaning the Revolutionary Party. Kupindua is the revolution, kupindua. So I was with CCM in the national conference, and it was very good. You could see really sense of organization of a party. A very strong party. You know, they have one of the oldest parties around, maybe in Africa. NRM is trying, but you know, for them, they have survived the leadership, one after the other. So we give thanks to them, and we promise to emulate. And like, for example, of course, our brothers in Kenya, UDA now in power, which we have strong allies with. The Kenyans have been in the process of constructing a vehicle every campaign to reach State House. After State House, you abandon it. The next election, you construct another one. So I was with the Tanzanians, and it was good, and their protocol and hospitality was so good. Also in the week, I could mention the NRM popularity. We have seen through the structural elections, it is being competed for nearly to death from LC1. I think they are registered death.
There are deaths, yes.
3 deaths. And for me, I can summarize that, You see, when you try to solve a problem, you create a solution, you create another problem. For example, if you want to do industrialization and you build factories and industries, you create pollution. But you can't now run away from the problem of solution because you fear to create industry. You rather create industry than deal with pollution. So some of us have been on these civic spaces, television, radios, talking to the people. We have recruited massively for the party. Now we have a challenge of managing the internal democracy. But we are better off managing the democracy than having no party, no people. I am sure if you call election of Jema, nobody will die.
Always bring the example of Jema.
Nobody will die.
But why does it that people die every time?
Because of the demand of the
then
party.
Don't you solve a problem? Because you have seen.
So we are solving. That's why I'm saying we have a challenge of managing it. Also, I want to say that Rogers mentioned something about his father. I have been chairman in Tare School All Boys for 2 Kisanja, 2 terms, for to the extent that the 2 presidents, when I was chairing, they called me Mr. Chairman, sir, because I was democratically elected for 2 Kisanja. So I know a lot of history about Ntare. So what Rogers is saying is that his father was in the same class with Museveni, and we call them the class of 1966. That's the class of Kategaya, Yoweri himself, Kawanga Paul of Masaka, who was in East Africa, Bibagamba, his father, Ruzindana, former IGG, and others. So I know them because I've kept a record for a long time. So now this brings me to the mentorship. I don't know what Rogers means by mentorship. My understanding is that because I'm close to his father, I told you I've been chairman twice, so I know all of them. As far as I know is that the father has mentored them, including Rogers, the father has mentored. Now, possibly for Museveni is that because of the liberal attitude in entire school, Museveni prefers mass mentorship. Now, people expected him to single point out somebody that this one, I want him to replace. No. Museveni says the constitution is clear. So for us, including Rogers' father, Rogers shouldn't worry. With all the children, by the way, we lost one of his brother, who is also an OB, a doctor. A doctor died, and the doctor is younger than him. But unfortunately, we lost a doctor, but I know the other brothers. So rather than Rogers be worried that the father is not mentoring them,
but he says
he's mentoring
the
all.
Are fighting the young.
No, first I want to deal with mentorship.
No, maybe yes, you have.
I will answer
clarified
that one.
that.
I will answer
why
that.
is it that it feels it's competitive between the young and the old?
I'm going to answer. No worry. Now, I want to say that the preference is mass mentorship, because NRM believes in mass line. So we shouldn't mistake it with identifying those who are replacing. Now, about the fear for fighting, Rogers should feel free, because Rogers should be the last person to think about this, because Rogers grew in a liberal Ntare school and a liberal family by the father. So I should encourage Rogers to talk freely, and down there's no drone. So there's no fear for the old killing the young. No way. It's just no way. There's no threat.
Why are you competitive? Why are the old competing with the young in that?
If anything, it is the young competing with the old.
Why?
Because they are eager and ambitious to acquire positions.
Then what's wrong with the old people?
The old people are still in charge. So I want to combine these two, that there shouldn't be any fear, but also that mentorship is ongoing, but on a mass line.
Okay.
Then,
as you conclude, sir.
As I conclude about Mother's Day tomorrow, is that in the Christian faith, Uganda has had that misfortune which turned into a good fortune. Possibly Uganda is among the few countries in Africa or in the world with the biggest number of saints. And normally the saint that you have, I went to Kenya the other day, And there are churches in Kenya with Uganda saint names, Luganda names with a saint there. So I wouldn't be surprised even in Europe to find Saint Baluka name, because they are saint in their own right at a global level. Therefore, it gives us the faith and the spirit and the conviction, and it calls on all of us to stand in the strong faith and the spirit of Christianity.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Ochieno, as you give us your opening remarks, how was your week, but also what do you think about the Martyrs' Day celebrations that are being commemorated tomorrow?
Yeah, my week was generally okay, not with major personal incidents. Obviously, I do exercise, and so my exercise is rarely the gym. I've never liked the gym, so I walk and do others. But then 3 times I'm trying to walk around, I all of a sudden realize that my entire neighborhood is surrounded by excess dust. So I didn't know that I was so oversensitive about this. For a long time, actually, I didn't know it was part of the problem, unless I asked myself. So that tells you how messy Kampala is. I told you program, Kampala is the most polluted city. So before Tare school guys get overexcited that they've created miracles here. But that's neither here nor there. So because it's put a link to health, Francis Babu and Margaret, people whom I both know, both people whom I know, because I lost my contacts in a telephone crash, I don't have the number, so I've not yet been able to call them, but I'll talk to them. But I offer formally my condolences, considering the fact that they've lost a very young citizen. As Rogers is saying, it's not a good thing that parents should bury children. We expect our children to bury us. But much more important is the fact that there's a young guy at 46. And just the other week, we were talking about, of course, the continuous many deaths. I told you for that death in Agongero of a 6-year-old child dying of cerebral malaria, and I took it very personally. That shouldn't be happening in this day and age. And then later we found Sudhir's son dying unnecessarily on the road structure, which clearly a death that could have been avoided. I experienced a similar thing on an Agonga road, except I was driving at a relative speed, and and then thankfully I hit Maram rather than a solid structure. So these are some of our national challenges. So fast forward, then we find Francis Babu's son.
We're going to come to that because his death is rather eventful. So there are things around. But I wanted to first pick your mind on the Uganda matters
So fair enough, yeah. So, but as I said, in terms of the incidents of the events of the week, so since we're going to come to that, so I found that very sad because I said I know both parents. I didn't really know Cedric myself personally, but I know both parents, certainly Margaret and Francis. As far as Uganda matters is concerned, the Nagongera parish is participating. I will be engaging with them fairly soon. I was in Nagongera last weekend, and the parish was preparing, just like many others across the country. And Comrade Awich is right that we have the majority of saints in Africa. The saints on this continent don't exceed 65 across the whole continent, and I think we have more than 2/3 on the number. So partly really because of Namugongo. But as I was walking, as I was driving towards this end of Kampala, I was passing through delegations, including, I think, a group from, I think, Wandega, one of the Makero parishes. And I saw these impressively, predominantly young people, and usually in these church faith things, with the boys who've got issues, there tend to be more women. So young women and others, but the men and the older people, but predominantly young people. And I found it quite impressive in these guys, linking with this. And you feel an emotion and a spiritual thing about this thing happening tomorrow. But I think, as Roger said, and although Comrade Awich talked about CCM last week, and I wanted to conclude with that I joked that which went to export the NRA bad manners to CCM. CCM is our sister political party, UPC is sister political party. Before NRA was born, CCM and UPC, particularly the two, and then Kaunda's party were three close allies. But I was very disappointed by the manner in which CCM handled the activists recently, and was very disappointed by the manner in which the president of Tanzania, whom I've been hailing as an exemplary leader, seems to have handled that. I hope that Tanzania listens to the world and changes. Tanzania is doing very well. We've got a huge amount of goodwill for them, and they ought to be able to do better than the manner in which they handled our activists, including my good friend.
You said they were very welcoming and very cordial to him.
No, because that's what I'm saying. If you're allies in bad manners, you'll do that. But the taste of decency is how you treat the most vulnerable in society. Okay. And I was last year in Tanzania. I went to Mwalimu Nyere's home, and we had the hospitality. We enjoyed the trip, private jetted kind of stuff, and it was fantastic stuff with our Tanzanian brethren. Sometimes when you're these people, they don't know how emotionally you feel attached to them. So genuinely, this is our East Africa. Okay. And Tanzania hosts the East African community. Tanzania hosts Arusha. And if you see what happened, in the likely event that I become a legislator within the next few years, perhaps I should begin to have a conversation on whether or not, if the behavior is not that which is not consistent with our founding values, that we review the hosting of the East African community, that maybe we push East African community headquarters from Arusha, maybe to Nakasongola. It's not. I'm simply saying, because, and I talk because Comrade Richard and I are globalists. Okay. I can't imagine how Brussels would behave like that to Europeans. I just can't imagine, because the headquarters of the European Union. Okay. So it's a privilege. It should not be taken as an entitlement. It's a privilege for them to be able to host that. And they benefit quite a lot economically and socially. And so, but just in 30 seconds. Yes, sir. So this Uganda Matters thing, I actually think that we don't put strategic national focus on it. So even in the madness, terrible politics that Roger's talking about, we lose the opportunity as a peoples, as a governments, to market what really 3rd June is. In part because I think we failed to learn from as you yourself rightly said, the sacrifices of the martyrs.
In just a few seconds, do you want to also elaborate on the quality of organizing itself? Because you've also mentioned that we don't get a lot from this particular event. We should get more, I believe. What is missing? Because personally, in my own opinion, I feel we're organizing it the basic way, the same way. Yes. It's becoming monotonous these days. How can we make it a bit funky?
I read somewhere that a particular delegation from Bali, and I don't want to give them big advice because there's a political element to it, donated, quote, drones, a number of vehicles for their delegation to go. And people were finding it rather funky, but I think there's a political self-interest in it. Okay. There is no reason why some of these things are not embraced by the Uganda Tourist Board and link it up with the Kampala City authorities, and then broadly make it a regional conscious kind of stuff, and then make it African and global. Okay. There is no reason why you can put an element of commercial interest, but it's not like these big prayers of on the day and people walking down the streets. Okay. Part of the other PR thing to it is, for example, just the group that I met from Makere. The person, and by the way, this is very important, guys, the persons who are giving the security are actually soldiers. Now, that in itself, from a PR perspective, I actually wouldn't say soldiers should be the one giving. It should be police, you see? So it's basically, because you're asking, this is sort of a religious, spiritual organizing, and the population quite very well respond to that. Does not mean that soldiers should not be participating, because normally they participate anyway, in front part of the, and there's quite a lot that could be done. Okay. And then finally, the infrastructure in Namugongo. Many of the residents of Chalewajala, Chira, part of Nalia, people talk almost in, here comes June again. What will we do? Rather than here comes the big strategic national opportunity.
Thank you so much. Tomorrow is going to be the D-Day as we commemorate or remember the matters tomorrow, Tuesday. So in Kampala here, Uganda, it is a public holiday. I'm going to come to you, Professor. These days, there is a new phenomenon of people, really, use the word mocking the dead, where after someone dies, we see people celebrating. The case with General Eli Tomwine, we've seen the case now with Babu. Why? You're a professor. Put me in the minds of those people. What makes someone celebrate when another is mourning?
It's unfortunate.
In the case of Cedric Babu.
It's unfortunate and not African, but you see also the bad politics is changing the behavior. Because reason is, especially these young people, my brother Chen is talking about, these young people for 40 years. Imagine, all of you here almost in the studio, we haven't seen any change. And now it is the leadership which is in place has shown as if, and the minds of the young people is being corrupted. For them, they think there will never be a change. And now they only know that the change, or what will make them be equal to the people who are in power, who are like semi-gods. Remember we talked of in our history Bachwezi, and some of these people are claiming to be Bachwezi. They were semi-gods. And now there is a feeling that these people are semi-gods. Actually, some of them cannot die. So now the public is anxious that now, when the acts of God neutralizes and maybe they die, they're like, hey, after all, they are like us. So it's a bad culture, but it is creeping up because somehow, even in the art of war, they are like, when you are fighting, you have to give some space for dialogue, and there should be some element where young people, that's why we're talking about mentorship, see hope in future, even in the near future. They should see it in 2 months, 3 years, 5 years. But right now the situation is as if, and you know, the arrogance of the people with power is that, for example, here this with my brothers in the NRM, that we are here for 40 years, and even the next 40 years we are here not to go anywhere. And some even arrogantly say, it's only the army and the police which will take charge. And these are people at senior level in charge of the nation. So now the young people wait and they're like, okay, when death comes, that's the only time they are rejoicing. And imagine...
But let me ask, a man like Babu, who is not directly into politics.
He is.
He's not directly into any elective politics. He has not come off to say he's in a corruption scandal. Is there a problem him being a supporter of Muhoozi Kainerugaba?
No, I'm giving even the positive. His father himself, and I give him credit, Francis Babu is critical.
Exactly.
Even of the government.
Of the system,
Yes. But this is a thing. If you saw how the thing played out, when Cedric had issues in Rwanda, he was taken to Aga Khan Hospital in Nairobi. And then there was a fundraising. And the fundraising, they were fundraising in dollars. And most of the people who were fundraising are government people, rich children's, you get it? Yeah? And I'll tell you, like even maybe my children or myself, I will be in that kind of class. Yeah? And they were fundraising for 1.5 billion to go out or to do a heart surgery. So now these other people, these other Ugandans, the majority of Ugandans, know that when anything happens, even if you want 1 million, it will not show up, so they will die. Yeah? So now when they see you fundraise 1 billion, which can change lives of 10,000 youth, they see first of all as extravagance. And after these promises of these Lubowa specialized hospital and everything. Yeah? So now for them, they look at themselves in the first place, if for me I got this issue, I would die the next minute because there will be no fundraising even of 1 million shilling. Because the health care in the nation is dead. But now these people, who some of them feel others are cushioned. Yeah? So this celebration will affect even me and you who are in ties. Yes. Whenever they see someone who's sort of privileged.
Yes.
Like they are like we should suffer.
But then, what does it speak of the political consciousness of our masses? Because when we entered 2006, we entered a multi-party dispensation, which meant that everybody has a political affiliation, a political party they believe in or support. So when I support the national resistance movement, does that make me bad in any way?
Yeah, you see, if it was a balanced way, because for me, I tell my brothers here in NRM, of which I was in NRM, and as like the leading party should show the culture. Yeah? They shouldn't be about winning election, especially since they started with the revolution of trying to rectify the issue of failed elections.
Yes.
But right now, it is clear even with them, they've deteriorated 100 times from the situation which was there in 1981, even which they claim was there. Because some of us scholars even don't see the situation was as worse. But this one, in their own premise, which are starting, you will see situations which have never happened even on the continent of Africa. So now, right now, any logical Ugandan, you cannot tell them that an election can dislodge this government. It is impossible. If you see the colossal amounts of money, even admitting there was a war between the chairman, and he will tell you, President Museveni, and the vice Chigongo, where I saw in paper, Chigongo say we used 9 billion. Ethically, if he was to say that in a sane democracy, he would resign. To say you used 9 billion. When I was doing my math, 9 billion, because the daughter got less than 9,000 votes. So it means 1 billion shillings per vote.
For 1,000 votes, you mean?
For 1,000.
By 1,000 votes. Because she used 9 billion, which is, to me, 9,000 million.
Yes.
Now divide by 9,000. So that's how I come to 1 million per. So these people even have the math. That is the math. They have the math. I was in Sanyuka on a weekend. An NRM delegate said, I've used 1 billion before the primary.
But that's not just them. Because I was with Stella Nyanjis in the last election. She used 1.3 billion. So she was not NRM.
No,
it's the politics of the land.
That's why I'm saying.
That expensive.
That's what I'm saying. The politics. But who is introducing it? The culture is coming from NRM. It has gone with even NUP.
Oh, it's you, the seniors, who are influencing these young people to think NRM is demonic. The words you use, satanic.
No.
You're the ones sowing these seeds of hate.
Let me tell you. He will tell you. Even in our simple before, and I give an example. Credit to NRM in 1986 to 96. They would put there a speaker, cameras, and all the candidates will come and debate. So the best debater, like he made me, would carry the day. Do you get it? Because the facilities are the same. No one would need to steal so much money to put up a PA system and everything. Do you get it? So now, as the leading party, they needed to send that culture across. Because to me, by the way, even if NRM lost 40 but sends a culture, because theirs was revolutionary to start a new culture. Okay. But the problem, they are the ones sponsoring the monetarization of politics. They are the ones demonizing the politics, and other parties and all these formations which have come on are copying the culture.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you. Because the political party you call demonic looks like it has numbers. I was looking at the nomination today. The numbers that flocked to that political party, outrageous. Let me come to you, Mr. Awich. What do you really think about how Ugandans are now perceiving your political party to an extent that when members from your political party pass on, or some members pass on, there is a bit of ululations and celebrations?
Well, first of all, I have not seen our party celebrating the death of an opposition.
There is no party that has individuals.
In the recent by-election that Rogers is citing, opposition had lost an MP. And I don't see any party cadre who came out to celebrate. That is not true. Now, this phenomenon of celebrating death is quite strange and painful to me. Because for me as a trained army officer, did you know that a dead in the army is very respected? They train you in cadet how to bury an enemy and how to honor an enemy. Because in the professional army career, it is expected that war is an advanced form of politics. And it is expected that either you will win or negotiation will come in the middle. Therefore, in the event of peace, we should be able to return the bodies
to them, yes.
To them.
Today, Israel is doing the same thing right now.
So you are supposed to keep the dead, respect the dead, bury the dead, and even mark the grave. So if in the army we respect the dead, I am surprised that in the civilian community we don't. But your question is still, why is it happening?
Especially when it is
how
your
do we interrogate it?
Members or your sympathizers.
Especially why it is. There are many reasons, of course. First of all, it also comes about maybe by the individual handling of one's self, how a particular cadre holds himself. If you hold yourself in a way, because for us in NRM we have code of conduct. I do not see how me, Awich, would come out of my way to brush people the wrong way. Therefore, the way I hold myself as a cadre also matters in how people may respond to my death. And I'm not here to say I will behave to please them, but I will just know I should do the right thing at the right time. So behavioral pattern when you are alive also attracts that. To some people also is that maybe if in the unfortunate event that you keep company to people that some people don't want, they can easily tag you to that and hate you for nothing, and therefore celebrate your death. The other thing is that because some people take politics as access to resources, they see some class as privileged, and therefore a member of a privileged class, in their opinion, deserves death, and therefore they would celebrate. Are
there some things that you people have done to bring that ridicule to you?
Okay, I will answer that. Just for the flow of my argument, I wanted to bring out two people who have died and interrogate responses to them. One is, let's say, late Colonel Shaban Bantariza. Shaban, fortunately, was like us in the public space, public discourse, public debate, and all that. So we would see his body language and his way of doing things. I think at one point he had said that if a political party, I think, come to power, he had his gun and he would go back to the bush. And the way of packaging his information, the communication way, I think rubbed the people the wrong way. So you could see the response to his death. Now take a member of opposition like Cecilia Ogwal. Cecilia Ogwal died. She was in the opposition, not very extreme opposition. But you'd see that the death of Cecilia, the response to the public was, oh, we have lost a stateswoman. So you can see responses to two people who have died. One took this direction, the other one took the other direction. So, therefore, giving credence to my proposition of what leads to a celebration or death, or what leads to a non-celebration, like in the case of Cecilia Ogwal. Cecilia Ogwal, the mood was sober, people thought we had lost, including in NRM. NRM felt that we had lost somebody. A critic would come up to criticize NRM, but on a very scientific position, that even when she stood up to criticize NRM, if you're a serious NRM or a minister in the parliament, you'd pick a notebook and note what she's saying. So, therefore, there are multiplicity of factors that lead to mockery or abusing the dead or laughing at the dead. About what we have done, we have not done anything as a party that would warrant mocking any of our colleagues.
He said your political culture.
No, our political culture in which
is
way?
The one that has
which culture?
Monetization
that is general.
of the politics.
Okay. On the issue of monetization of the politics, that one would need a whole day to do.
Violence too?
Monetization of politics, in my opinion, was not started by NRM. Monetization of politics was started by individual candidates. I would say candidates who found themselves challenged in the face of an opposing candidate to him, thought that he would be over and above by compensating with material or monetary gain. Now, little did we know that it would turn to a culture where the voters will think it is their right. No voter started asking any candidate money. It is the candidates who started giving voters money to take due advantage. And it was started by, I could say, weakling candidates. If I came in the election with Rogers, I'm a candidate, Rogers is a candidate, and I feel Rogers has undue advantage over me in terms of quality, what I will do is to try to compensate using money. Okay. So it is not an institutional framework. It's not NRM framework. It is weak candidates who started this, and they did it. Otherwise, if you'd say it is institutional, it's like NRM had a budget fund for buying candidates. Even when facilitation came at a later stage, individual candidates had already spoiled voters.
Okay. Honorable Ochieno, you had already hinted on this issue of Cedric, but why do we still see this in your perspective? And how can we better this phenomenon or this culture? How can we stop it as a country, really?
We need a national overhaul. It's a national culture, it's a national crisis, and it's a crisis that was and has been embedded by NRA's 40 years, very deliberate. It's not anything that I thought I would see in my lifetime, and certainly not what I would see as a young person, if I recall. Last Sunday, I found me in Agongera, and I was compelled to ask the priest to talk to the congregation. And as I explained, and I'll say it again, I rarely do so, and by the way, I'm generally a shy person. And when it comes particularly to some of the spaces, I don't like to take advantage by virtue of my name or my status. So in my local church in Agongera, where of course I'm the boy, I sometimes want to even sneak into the church so that people don't recognize, but of course it's impossible. And so I asked to talk because the previous night I was driving home Comrade Awich and Rogers. And I was very concerned that in 4 trading centers actually, including Pajuenda, which is a town council in the neighboring Jacob Oboth constituency, which will soon to possibly become a new district. I found hundreds of young people on the streets. It's about 7, 8 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 7, 9. And these are kids from between the ages of 7, 8, possibly predominantly 8, 9, to 10, 13, 14-year-olds, in their big numbers in trading centers. And I reached home and I said, what is this? Of course, I've seen it. And I wrote in my Sunday column, when I returned to Uganda, my first Christmas, Comrade Awich from the NRA-induced exile, one of my big things was that on a Christmas day, I went to buy sodas in Agongera town. And I found these multitudes of young people walking around. And I'm saying this is Christmas Day. It's a cultural thing. Christmas Day. Christmas is a day when you expect everybody else to be around the family. And it's not what I saw. Now, even those days, the then Sundays of our times as high school students, you would go down the trading center, the shops, but you would not go to do the kind of thing that I saw was happening. So I raised this, so I made this a national conversation. What am I saying? When I chose to speak in church, I sought to challenge the parents, the young people, the Christian community, and also to simply say what's going on. And I decided not to politicize it, but I know there's an element of a political element in there. One time, I was a witness to a pupil in a primary school whom the teacher, his own school teacher was telling him not to cut a certain tree. And this boy was dismissing her, and I was having a walk. That's in Nagonga, actually, by my school. And when eventually I went to talk to the teacher whom I didn't know, she turned out to be a teacher in my former primary school. And she's a teacher to this pupil. And this pupil was basically dismissing a teacher on a Saturday. And I said, what is this new thing? Fast forward. Jacob Olanyo, when he died, caused bits of this, and and so there was this question of why Ugandans, particularly in the diaspora, celebrate. I think some celebrated, they even so many demonstrated things like that. It nearly took an identity angle, almost like a tribalist thing, kind of stuff. And the debate took place on social media. But part of the argument was that Jacob apparently, Jacob was a decent brother of mine, when I said so, had a hand in the term limit process. Like Comrade Rich says, Ugandans resented that. Not actually switch from UPC to NRA.
Age or time?
No, you talk about what some of these people do, and I think we also need to be very careful because we need to respect the dead. So Jacob's contribution to the third term staff, the majority of the Ugandans in the diaspora who would have been oppositionists, people who wanted to see change, saw him as having contributed to that. But much more significantly was at the peak of the debate around Pineti, and Mr. Museveni, I think, needs to be tried for this, and medical services. Say, you're a big man, you're a speaker, and you're now here, and it's our money, and this is corruption thing. The kind of thing that Roger is saying. I think that is really much more about these things. So there is politics, but there's also economics of the politics, and then there's the corruption of the politics, and then the failure of your political organization, basically, to create an enabling environment in which the majority of people, our citizens, should get access to medical services in Uganda. And actually, when it comes to this thing about exporting of death and exporting of treatment, Ugandans feel very strong about it. And to me, it generally surprises me that it will be another post-Cedric conversation. Unfortunately, we'll talk about these things in the next few weeks. It will be dead and done with. Shockingly,
yes.
Cedric was, and I didn't know, a close ally of Muhoozi.
The vice president of PA.
He gets a heart attack, and he's not able to he's rushed to Nairobi rather than to Luboa, kind of stuff. This is what's going on in people's minds. And these things have been happening since the other time of this other general who died dubiously in an aircraft. And we've been having these conversations again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So Ugandans have got a right to sort of ask that. So you'll be surprised that it's possibly less now about even the people who've died, but Ugandans using that now as an opportunity to express themselves.
Okay.
But from that point of view, it actually looks really nasty to sort of try and localize it to an individual who's passed, particularly when this person has got family. In this case, you've got father, mother, siblings, wife, and children. Yeah, it is difficult. But it's a balance that Ugandans must realize, that the bottom line that is actually the terrible politics and the failure of politics and the manner in which health services in this country has been excessively privatized and monetized.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joseph Ochieno, Mr. Pollar, Awich, and of course, Mr. Rogers Barigayomwe. Let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, we continue the conversation of the politics in the country. I told you earlier on that different political parties are gearing up for the electoral season. Today, the NRM and the NUP have, members have picked their nomination forms from those particular political parties. The Democratic Party also has a bit of news going on there. We look at the politics when we come for the second hour. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. You're still watching the Alternative Digital TV.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. You're still watching the Alternative Digitalk TV, and my name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. That is at the Alternative Uganda, but also at Digitalk TV. I told you that earlier on today, members of the National Resistance Movement have picked nomination forms, and among those was the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, who is going to be vying for Woman Member of Parliament, Bukedia District. I also saw Thomas Tahebwa, the Deputy Speaker, and different individuals. I think I saw Patrick Wakida somewhere. He's going to be vying for a position in Chibuku. Many individuals are actually picking up nomination forms. It was rather lively and eventful at Chadondo, where the National Resistance Movement headquarters are. But also at the National Unity Platform, we saw a couple of members picking nomination forms, and the Democratic Party as well has had its delegates conference. When you look at the Democratic Front, it's also gearing up for the elections. We had PFF as well. It looks like everybody's gearing up for the general election. My question is, how prepared are these political parties? But also, what does this mean, especially for the people who have been saying that the election is actually not that impactful? So what does this really mean for the politics of the country? I'm going to start with Honorable Awich, being a member of the National Resistance Movement and a senior leader there. How was the entire experience today, especially when picking nomination forms?
The experience was good, very interesting, very encouraging. I sit on plot 10 of the same Chadondo Road. I sit with the Secretary General. Now, the picking of the form was in plot 13, the opposite side. That is where Dr. Tanga Odoi sits. But being a day that was unique, I took time to walk. I walked from my office. Normally I would drive, but I walked from my office with two friends to enter and get the feel. So I entered there, got the feel, found enormous turn-up. And this now proves the strength of the party. I was so happy. Because the only thing that worried me was that as you try to remedy a situation, you create a problem. And I always like to give this example, that you're crying for industrialization, for building of factories. When you build factories, you build industries, you create a problem of pollution of the air. So we have been on TVs like here, we have been everywhere, we have been talking to the people and going to the grassroots to recruit members. We did it. Now we have the challenge of managing internal democracy. Because right now, you find a constituency as expression of interest. At 3 million shillings, 15 people in a constituency, 15 people are capable of parting with 3 million each. Therefore, those who were thinking that we had not done our part to recruit and to market the party, they can now see it. And this is why I've always asked when they make accusation of vote rigging on our side. I have said the entire West Nile, the entire Choli, the entire Lango, the entire Teso and Karamoja, you find the main opposition party like NUP not even having polling assistant at a polling station. But you still find that they have won with some percentage. Really, if we are these crooks in rigging, why wouldn't we rig the entire Choli, the entire Lango? Because they don't have polling agents.
Someone called it, in political philosophy, they call it a state party. That, I give you an example, in 1980, UPC was the legitimate party. It was the one that had more members of parliament. But your force actually said they had rigged the election. So I don't think that when you have massive parties or agents around the country legitimizes the fact that you win. It could be the state.
The UPC,
the tools of the state.
Listen, the UPC kind of election, remember the multi-party election in the 1980, the party with majority members of parliament would form a government. But here we are talking of, so therefore you were not bothered about voting or voting Semugerere in Karamoja. You are concerned with voting members of parliament, UPC or DP, there.
Yes.
That is it. Now, it becomes different in this case because here we have adult suffrage for the president and parliament. So I'm talking of a village constituency.
So
in Agago.
There wasn't...
There's a village constituency in Agago where you don't have a polling agent for NUP. But let's say 100 people voted, and you still find 70 votes is counted for Museveni, 30 votes for NUP. Why don't we take all this?
Then teach me how the 1980 December election was unfree and fair. How was it unfree and fair?
The 1980 election was to this effect. For example, complaints in two areas. Say Mitiana Mbende of Samwiri Mugwisa. The idea of Samwiri Mugwisa, who was brought as a UPC member of parliament, was that Samwiri didn't win in that, but Paul Mwanga simply declared Samwiri Mugwisa a winner by declaration. Now, if you see like in the north, the complaint in the north was that Adoro Nekyon, because first of all he's Obote's cousin and he was standing on DP, that when he left for here to go to Kampala, they literally arrested him at the roadblock so that he could miss nomination. The other one is Changumachu, who was Professor Changumachu. They deliberately refused to nominate him because Changumachu, there was no evidence that he could speak English, forgetting the fact that he was professor. So those are the manipulations that we are talking of. So it was
so
not on the voting.
Around the election.
Yes, it was not the voting. But here I'm saying in Agago, in Utuke, in where you have 100 votes counted, in a village where NUP has no polling agent, and we count 30 for NUP. Why don't we count at least 99 for Museveni and only give one? Never. They have no agent. They all West Nile, the whole of Lango, the whole of Teso, the whole of Karamoja, zero.
So how do you see this
election? This claim of rigging election is completely not founded.
If with all those circumstances you're talking about, where is your position, especially in this coming general election? Is it going to be simpler, or what do you read?
Me, I'm seeing the position is going to be simpler because, one, we have done the work. Two, test and manifestation was seen in the urge and the fighting for position at village level. I went to Amoro because I was in charge at Choli. I went to Amoro, and I went to a place where there are 4 polling stations at a go for LC1, flag bearer. I would look at how the line was twisted, and then I said, and yet we're using our register. Then I said, if this village has this line which has come here, then in this village, who else is remaining? I went to Agago in some place called a Wall, and I found a crowd. I stopped and I looked at somebody who looked like a leader, said, you come. I asked him what is happening. He said, these are NRM. We are registrars and we are aspirants. We are meeting today to prepare for tomorrow. And the man told me in this sub-county, there's no any other party. So let me take this also opportunity to worry those who are in the state machinery, especially police and the military, that for us in the body politic, we have done this work. There's no cause for alarm.
Okay.
Let them make us manage it.
Thank you.
Because there's nothing alarming. In the villages, everywhere, we have the support. And it's, for example, in the FDC of Besige, or even in the recently of Noop, towards the election, you'd see a formidable opposition. You'd see a figure coming out. But you don't see it now.
For real, it's not here.
You don't see it. So let those in the state machinery leave us in the body politics. We are handling.
Thank you.
We have campaigned. We have marketed the party. We have the support. We shall win.
Thank you. Brooke Williams Chikomeko, you are live. You're saying, I'm here. Hey, Princess Luwede. I don't know why you greet Princess Luwede alone. But Brooke Williams, you're watching. Then I have Atuhere Brenda. You're also watching Henry Mangeni, Mwesiga Joram from Kienjojo. I can see Henry Lubowa, Katoka Wesi, then People's Councillor Brian Atede. Many people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Rogers, Professor, these guys are doing their work as the National Resistance Movement leaders. And so they say, we have campaigned and taken the political party all over the country. Which is a fact, because it looks like they have an individual or a group of individuals on every village, not even a parish, but every village. Isn't it ironical or outright lying when you say that the National Resistance Movement is monetizing but also robbing and rigging elections? What do you think about this?
I was 10 years. I grew up in a whole household of one of the most senior cadres of the NRM. He knows very well. Actually, at one time, my father was known to be one of the strategists rigging for the NRM friends of his. And so I know all these because I could tell you of stories maybe where I slept and my pillow was ballot boxes. So no one can challenge me on this. What the NRM started as a mass party is what it took advantage, it's what it's using, because they brought everyone in the umbrella and they've never moved away from the umbrella. A point of instance is in when we started, like, okay, let me just give you an example of these youth elections or women elections. How do they do them? They would get the delegates. Get them, and my friend here will tell you, they get them, all the delegates, whether you are new or what, they buy you and take you in a hotel for about 3 days until the voting day. That was what they call electoral colleges. The person would monetize, the candidate would buy, like, if I've given you my 2 million, off to whichever hotel, and they would hijack voters. That's how the electoral college works. That's how the electoral college works for women, for youth. That's why you see in electoral college you cannot beat NRM.
Yes, very difficult.
Even in Central, even Kampala, they will win electoral college because if that one is clearly monetized, the delegates, the youth, especially, you know them. If you tell a youth 5 million, he will not die for Bobby Wine even if he's no. But now, what I tell people, now they've come out with all their shame away from electoral college. They've electoral collegized everything that with their PDM, with their opportunities they give, they've made all of us Ugandans into that kind of cocoon of electoral college. That you, professor, if you ever want to be a vice chancellor of any institution, I've told you I'm a professor, why haven't I? You think I cannot qualify for some of these posts when my father is a cadre?
No, but professor...
I'm telling you, what they say is, if you ever dream of any opportunity for the next 20 years, I'm telling my senior here, don't ever say anything against government. If you ever think of PDM in the villages, I'll tell you the village chairman of my village, Kahihi, is my cousin, and he doesn't believe in NRM, but now he's the chairman of NRM. Because
then he believes
I'm telling you, to be a member of a party is an ideology, what you believe in, not what you are fixed in. My senior colleague told you that the FDC's reform agenda then, they put up some resistance. And that time Ugandans believed that there could be a genuine change. Yeah? Then what happened after? Demonizing them, imprisoning them, taking away opportunities. Yeah? My father was the first to be associated with Kizza Besigye. He knows very well. We went without fees for some. It's just an act of God that we survived. Just that you have a mentality thinking different from them is a sin. Now, they impoverished all these cadres. They became broke. Loan sharkers came for them. And it has been a story for 20 years that now everyone has given up. You get it? Look at Norbert Mao. He's the one we, in our youthful days, looked at as a person who will deliver us, savior. He is neutral. But he has disorganized his own party by what I call that.
But Professor, I want you to first listen to what he says, that you go to different constituencies, different villages, where these people don't have agents. I'm going to add something, that in every parliament, NRM brings members of parliament unopposed. More than 15 members of parliament unopposed. That means in that constituency, nobody even felt the urge to just say, let me carry a political party and say, there is another idea here.
No, so I will tell you,
how do you win such a man?
No, honestly. I'm a chairman of the most popular party, Labour Party. Let me tell you, just even here, many of you want salary, equal salary, minimum pay and everything. You get it? I don't have the funds to go to Nagongera. Yeah? To even, and not only the funds, the time we went starting to write these things of like become Labour Party, they said we are rebels. You get it? These people have demonized politics. Yeah? If you are not NRM, you are enemy, you are satanic. So the truth is, one, the other parties don't have the resources. Even this NUP you see has no resource to put any structure anywhere. UPC, in UPC's time, they were more tolerant. Do you know, in that UPC time, President Museveni was campaigning that he's going to the bush. Do you know that? In the time, the 1980 election,
while informing them.
He was informing them on the pulpit. If I said it now, or even just to show that it is a constitutional right, I wouldn't. So this, by the UPC, was tolerant. These ones, they've demonized, like, first of all, the money, they've made it hard for, and it's the money with the state, and the state, there is no difference between a state, because I will tell you, my own father, who was already a UPM and from NASA, he had his job in government. Some of these NRM people stayed in government until 86. He's one of them.
That is true, yeah.
They were not persecuted as such. Actually, it is, I think that's what...
I think, please repeat that. That's a very important point, yes.
My father, Senior Richard Barigayomwe, was a civil servant throughout. He would give his aid, but in government. Up to 86, he was a civil servant, not persecuted for anything. Not for his reasoning even. So to me, I see UPC, to me, was more decent than this, what I would call my own father party, which cannot give me an opportunity even as a professor.
The president has laughed at you, professor.
No, they are demonic because,
laughs at you.
One, they don't want any other thing.
Intellectuals.
It is until you think like them, they are not tolerant. UPC left the DP to operate here. And yes, it started that dirty politics of maybe crossing over because some DP, Bateringa has crossed over and everything. And I think that's how Museveni was reading the script. And he has overdone it to higher levels than the UPC did it. Gerrymandering, dividing constituencies. They used it that systematic. But these ones have taken it to a level. Because if you see the level of rigging, the level of monetarization of politics. Let me tell you, in this Uganda, no constituency you can take without $1 billion shilling. You can't. And those MPs are there, they will tell you, Honorable here will tell you, he's at the secretariat. You cannot go to voters and say ideas. They don't want even to listen to ideas. But who is selling this culture? Is it the minority NUPU about 30? Is it FDC 2010? Who is selling this idea and who is encouraging it? Election by election, the numbers are increasing. Now you want to tell me that Anita Among is more NRM than me? These are fake people, comedians who have come to take advantage of the situation. Many people have come, most of these politicians, to rob the country, and they just use the NRM figure to take advantage of the economy.
It's growing stronger. It's stronger by the day, the NRM. If you only looked at the nomination day itself, if you looked at the structure of elections, this political party is very strong.
Because they've made it without an alternative. But if, let's say, President Museveni was to be taken there by the act of God, there will be no more NRM. Wow. So the structure is all built, because you're saying it is strong. Can you be strong without a successor? Who they've destroyed their
standby engineer here.
They've destroyed all the possible.
There is a standby engineer.
I think some people had the hope in the standby, and they told you about some of those people with their signpost of they put in, expecting some money.
Let's go. Brooke Williams, you are starting to speak some secrets here. The problem of this country is NRA occupation. And it's going to take all Ugandans to realize it and wake up to fight and liberate their country. Of course, you know why the NRM gets unopposed MPs. They give their competitors money to withdraw. Secondly, opposition don't get time to mobilize, recruit, or even prepare candidates. Let me come to you, Honorable Joseph Ochieno. What do you think about this particular new phenomenon, especially the national resistance movement, as it's gearing up for the elections? It looks like it has a slight edge, especially when you look at the national outlook of the country. What do you think?
No, it's deliberate and it's by design, and I couldn't say any better than Robert has. Just as a matter of interest, if Brian Atuhaire is the young recent student I was talking about, Brian should get in touch with you so that I give you my emergency number.
Yes,
because among the students that I met and have been encouraging to grow, as Comrade Rich has done excellently at Intare. I lost my contact, so people are wondering what may be happening. So he's one of those guys who was lucky to meet his father and some of his young siblings, and fantastic young family. I hope they are, but yes, I just lost my other contacts. But that said, I just want to debunk straight away the 1980 thing that we must put to settle. I was around in 1980, Comrade Rich was much younger. 1980 general elections was not rigged. It was a propaganda by DP and NRA. Samuel Mugisa, for the record, Samuel Mugisa was the most powerful, influential Muganda away from Paul Muanga. And the reason being that Samuel Mugisa was sent by Milton Obote as a commissioner in the liberated parts of Buganda, just like Chris Rakasisi and Edward Rangaranga were sent to the other end in Ankole. So these are guys who were here on the ground and got involved and got in touch, and so extremely popular. To the extent that Mugisa, after exile, after the mess and exile, stayed in until died in Mubende, tells you how popular he was. He genuinely won that seat in Mubende. And to tell you, These NRA guys came and screamed everything else. DP and NRA took power and controlled power for 20 years. None of them went to court to challenge Samuel Mugisa's seat. Mugisa is one of the few decent nationalists whom I'll defend until tomorrow. And by the way, I really miss him because he was one of those elder statesmen who would basically guide us. Number two, Changumacho in Samia is almost like this thing of standing in Nyabushozi. I don't know the details, but if people technically did not get themselves nominated because they're playing like the guy who stood against, the DP guy who stood against Dr. Moses Apilga in Hoima. Moses Apilga flew the day before. This guy went by road. By road, there were roadblocks because there was a post-war situation. And the roadblock, including in the West Nile particularly, there are, I think, 2 roadblocks between Karuma and Arua, partly because the main guys had threatened elections. So it's a common sense concern. Now, the roadblocks were not against opponents, but the national security roadblocks. Number 2, that was an interim roadblocks by the interim government at the time, for which Mr. Museveni was the deputy chief in that government. In fact, he was the Minister for Defense. You know, so it's an absolute nonsense, this continuation of the conversation. Moses Apilga himself told me that his opponent, who arrived there 2 hours late after nomination, but his very same opponent, that's the conversation that being talked about here. Apparently Moses told me, and Dr. Apilga is still around, he actually told his opponent in DP, and he told me this, that let's fly, because I'm flying, you know, and the guy said he was going to go by road. And Apilga said he would pay his ticket. Apilga is still alive. And the guy said he declined. You know, so Apilga flew. So it was basically a matter of logistics. Number 3, again, I don't know for Mzee Adok Nekion, we ended up being very close friends, and I know his family fairly closely. So I would respect him. But Nekion actually apologized to Milton Obote. In fact, he made a delegation to Lusaka to apologize to Milton Obote. And he did so at the time when I was head of the bureau in the UK, including part of his contribution to the propaganda in DP and NRA, for the record. But I can tell you, a DP person getting a nomination in Maruzi, meaning Obote's Akokoro at the time, would have been a very difficult thing, not because of the crudeness of UPC, but just simply the numbers. In Maina Gongera, UPC had over 80% support. By the way, in 1985, I don't know how many people would have come out basically to support a DP candidate. So I can imagine it in Lang all the time in Milton Obote. It was just an impossible thing. So if these people were not popular, and of course the people were preparing to go to the bush, and DP was speaking the language of NRA, NRM, that's the thing. So for these 1980 elections, things should be put to rest. And finally, turns out the other one was the fact that UPC had, I think, 14 or 16 unopposed members of parliament, because that's part of the argument that has been made, that UPC rigged, and then they were, no. Exactly. It is simply because the structural thing that Comrade is saying to an extent is right, that in some constituencies, political parties, opposition parties, simply didn't have the numbers. The same, you know? Indeed. My cousin Terry Dongoduka won Lira South at the time.
So it's the same argument we are also making.
But you can make that, and I'm coming to, no, that's fair enough, because some unopposed positions are really genuinely legitimate, including for NRA. Although the point Roger's making is context from 1986 to where we are at the moment. So those were the situations then. Now, part of what Roger's saying, and which may not be clear, is that when these guys came, they banned parties. Basically, they turned political parties' hands back. It's just like saying you're sending people to a swimmer to swim in a swimming competition, and then Roger, you go in a suit, you know, you know, and you drop 1 second late. But the other, you want to do, should remove my glasses or remove my shoes. You know, maybe go in gumboots, and the other guy is going in a swimming suit. So who's going to win? 20 years, political parties were banned. For 20 years, political parties were demonized. For 20 years, the North and East were under war of terror, deliberately started by NRA, and that's for the record. For 20 years, these guys were pushing this monolithic movement political system. For 20 years, leaders of mainstream political parties, UPC then, and then later DP, were not only demonized. UPC leaders were either killed, targeted, exiled, or impoverished. DP leaders like the Bukenyas and others absorbed into NRA. That is the context. So that by the time multipartyism came in, opposition parties were generally very weak, politically, economically, socially, and including terms, of course, including resources. And then finally, I think what Roger said, when pluralism came, NRA did something that our lawyers still need to do. Instead of this guys going back to UPM, the Museveni's party, they decided to continue. Museveni said, let them go. For us, we remain in the movement. Meaning, many, particularly those LC1 chairpersons, people who genuinely had settled to the idea that, well, we're in a monolithic movement political system. People remained in the movement. So by default,
which narrative they both called Tubejeko by Museveni?
Yes, sort of that's right. That's right. So NRA has and had huge advantage. And so some people psychologically, even today, they're NRA, but they cannot explain the man.
Anyone would say it's been 20 years. Haven't we healed from that hangover? 20 years of multi-party
That would have been an
politics?
argument, but you can see the foundation. The foundation of 1986, the foundation of 2006 is not the foundation of 1980, if you get my point. In 1980, we were starting at par, all of us. You see what I'm saying? And for 4 years, while we had a democracy and DP was there, these guys were busy fighting in the bush, and there was BBC, there's Western imperialism, there are others, there's the tiny Rollins with their dubious money, the William Parks and all this kind of stuff. So it's not the same kind of stuff. Okay. However, where you're also right is that, well, by now, we as opposition political parties ought to have done slightly more and better. But guess what? We had been infiltrated as well as exiled. For me, I know that as head of the External Bureau 30 years ago, some of the biggest infiltrators are today big guys in NRA as spies. So NRA monetized this strategy in a very early way. And Otafire, in a conference in which I exposed him actually in London, was then head of, I think, external security, and he had come in some conference in the name of Pan-Africanism. And so he said that, these people, we buy them, we kneel for them. And of course, Otafire can be as dramatic as Museveni. He was actually demonstrating how they kneel for them at a certain university in London. So basically, using money, Comrade Awich, these guys started very early. And then, you know what? Actually, at President's office, in parliamentary buildings, after I had received my third torture, and I was being interrogated, NRA guys, and they know themselves, senior officers in NRA, one of them asked me, you young Makererians, what do you want? One asked me, do you want a job, do you want money, or do you want a house? Those three things they asked me. And I said all of them no. And the manner in which I said all of them no, then another one was actually very said, they said, that we are proud or arrogant or something like that in terms of response. Okay. So it's a culture that has been, these guys came from 1986 when we said the fundamental change. It was deliberate. They monetized everything. So opposition parties now, where's the UPC leadership? Where's the DP leadership? Where's aspects of NUP leadership? Where's aspects of DP leadership? And unfortunately, all this, they're using your money, they're using national infrastructure to basically kill and break political opposition. Let me bring it to him.
As you make your response to what he has said, President Museveni has been on record to say that there will not be any opposition by 2026. As we are gearing up for 2026, it looks like there is no opposition. He was on record not to have supported the multi-party dispensation. So isn't it actually a fact that these gentlemen are raising, that you are the biggest causers of the political problems we have in this country?
Museveni saying going to be no opposition. I've noted it, I will answer and conclusively. But let me drag out comments which had been made earlier. One, Roger said his father was rigging for his friends. I think my emphasis maybe could have been, and my great guarding is Museveni rigging national elections, at least at a presidential level. And that is where my biggest defense is. Why am I not seriously defending the parliamentary? Because they're so multiple that to me following it becomes difficult. So if Rogers is indeed saying his father was rigging for his friends, he was rigging for LC3, for LC what, for LP, that will always
defend his chairman.
That is his business.
The fact that it was done by an NRM,
but rigging other levels, not the Museveni level. The Museveni level is what I'm saying in Agago, in a village under a mountain, 40 kilometers, even from a Maram road. There's a polling station where 100 people have voted. In that bush, 40 away from a Maram road, we still declare 30 for Bobby Wine. Where is the rigging? Now, if his father was rigging for friends, Whether LC3 chairman or LC5 or MP, that's another thing. The other thing I wanted to raise is the matter of electoral college. Electoral college, we definitely win. Why? Because when you elect members, we offer our candidates to contest. Say, for example, let's say youth. Youth come to national position to win the youth election, to vote for this minister for mineral now, isn't it? The lady. What is her name?
She's
Fiona.
Nyamutoro. Now, if you see the electoral college there, it's because contesting at district levels, we have won it. So we form the majority. And they automatically, we deserve to win it. So we don't win by rigging, but we win because we win even right from the village, the national electoral structures.
But it was the same case as UPC in 1980. They were winning. Well,
that is my comment on that. Now, on NRM being stronger, I was sitting here and amazed as the debate changed, because it looks like the debate has changed to why has NRM managed to be stronger? That is now the debate. Now, for you to take that line of debate, it's first confessing and conceding that NRM is stronger. Now the question is how, why, and why. So Mia was sitting and relaxing and enjoying debate, because the debate first now shows conceding that indeed it is stronger. Now, if we are going to debate why it is stronger, there are multiplicities. First of all, we have had our flagship program, PDM, which we put it in our manifesto. And every party had a right to put in the manifesto. The people bought our manifesto, voted, and we implemented. It is giving us winning. Two, we have been talking to people, including me. In a week, I talked to about 5 TVs. We have been talking. Therefore, look no further about why NRM is strong.
If you are as strong as you claim, why do you have to disadvantage your opponent in order for you to win?
That is now the
why do you
debate.
Have to torture?
That is
why
now
do you have to arrest? Why
that
do you
is
have
now
to
the
beat?
debate as to why NRM is stronger.
Is that strength?
They are propositions.
But is that strength?
No, it is not. Those are prepositions. So I was saying that NRM is stronger for known reasons. Service delivery in terms of the flagship program. Our explanations, I told you in 7 days a week I'm on 5 TVs, we have explained. To the extent that even Radio 1 Spectrum that have lately been appearing, do you know now I hear people who ring and thank. 2 years ago or 1 year ago, nobody would hear us talking and ringing. I'm sure even if you look at your thing. So it is a multiplicity.
I want to address how you are winning, because the fact is not how
I said service delivery. I've said our explanation.
But when when Edimutwe is being tortured and tried arbitrarily, when people are being murdered, when they try to protest or something, how strong are you really? Is that strength?
Edgar, you are the one who was actually telling him that we are strong. Now you are asking me how strong we are.
Yeah, because
it
you
is
can,
you who
can
was
be strong when you are fighting someone whose hands are tied, who has a blindfold on their face, and you punch them. In your mind, you can think you're strong. But how legitimately strong are you?
I am saying it is the very you who was telling Rogers that going by the village structure elections, going by the picking of nominations, you were telling Rogers that NRM is strong. Now it is you asking me whether you are strong. Now in that case, if you accept that we are strong, your question should therefore be, amidst your strength, why are you still doing this? First concede that we are strong. Amidst your strength, why are you still doing this? Now, why this is happening, it's difficult for me to gauge, because it is always perceived that it is the state intelligence who pick threats and make them act the way they are acting. including arrest. So I wouldn't go into the domain of intelligence of whether, say in Kawempe, whether they had picked intelligence threats of terrorists disorganizing, that they were so keen on their restraint. So I don't, that is the domain of the state.
Okay.
But I had already earlier on said, if some state actor is fearing that we may lose, I had told you earlier that my call to them is, leave it to us in the body politic. We are doing our job.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, finally, I have not answered your question. Your question is, Museveni going to be saying there's going to be no opposition. Indeed, the president made this pronouncement. And the pronouncement was just in the scientific term that given the 5 years, given the 5 years, we are going to perform to the extent that everybody will be with us. And we have performed, and the result is clear.
Thank you, thank you. Honorable.
Do you mind just a quick one, actually? It's a point I've left behind, but I think it's important. You know this thing about NRM people lining up? Is because the extent of monetization has gone so deep, and I didn't want to lose this point. But now in many areas, partly because of what Rogers was saying, you need to have huge amount of money. Now, whereas wealth has gone into the hands of a particular grouping of people without prejudice, some areas, particular region, but is now so much confined in the hands of NRA that people who want to aspire, just like some of the young people, in order for people to go, there's a case I think of some young former University Guild student crossing to NRM somewhere in West Nile, and you would go to the details simply because they want to stand on NRM. Why? Somebody would rather put their 3 million, get the favor of NRA, they get to quote the flag, and they know they get guaranteed for support by NRM as a political party.
Or guaranteed the position.
Something along those lines. They'll be backed by money and all the other structures, meaning state coercive forces to basically deliver them. It's sort of seemingly more about them, because I know many people, including somebody who was asking me the other day that maybe, in fact, I say it for the record, that maybe are standing in Nagongera municipality on an independent ticket.
So what does it have to do with lining up?
No, because some of the people who are coming there, to be fair, a good proportion of them are coming to you because that is where the access to parliament is, and access to money. Yes, but not necessarily because they love your political organization.
No, but I want to clear this. I thought the insinuation was that lining up is linked to corruption or something.
No.
That is what I thought was coming.
I meant queuing up for the nominations rather than lining up for the election. No.
Because if you talk of lining up for us, in our diction, in our choice of words, lining up is the transparent way of voting. So in future, when you're talking of lining up to an NRM card election,
I also thought it was these elections.
Yes, that's why I was wondering.
Lining up.
That's why I was wondering.
Picking nomination forms.
If you like.
Because I was seeing everybody.
For my language,
people are picking nomination forms.
The popularity, the demand of the party, the love for the party is so high.
He has not called it the love. I think the benefits that come with being the party. There's a new political formation, DF and PFF, new political formations. In fact, I'm hearing there's ERP also coming on board. New political formations as we gear up for these elections. Are they going to do something different?
Ecological party.
There is ecological party, there is ERP, there is PFF, there is the DF.
The calculation I told you is at one time, the NRM formulated their strategy was, one, to be a good party, and their culture, they introduced a good culture between 86 and 96. And in any way, a formation which came out of NRM, which was Reform Agenda, was good enough, the FDC now. And the FDC used the weakness of the NRM to start modeling, as in research, philosophy, like a model. They modeled a party. They didn't have power, but they modeled a party which Ugandans would see, which was changing leadership because they saw the weakness. But out of the bad heart of like even this child of mine, because FDC was out of NRM, they saw their modeling coming. They are like, no, we have to destroy the thing coming up because it shouldn't, it will demonize us. These guys are changing leaders here. So the NRM brought money. And there we couldn't confirm, but recently they brought money, I believe that's the time of the talk of they finished the party, they created ANT to come out of FDC. But what resulted from their public outcry of FDC, of the President and Secretary General coming and saying, you know, we've got bad money here. Kizza Besigye accusing them. That's when now the talk of money comes. You saw the talk of money which has affected your party, UPC, by Akena going directly to pick the money. You've seen the chaos where Democratic Party, which was known for mentoring young people and everything, you're still seeing the chaos in Mbarara. And there is a correlation. The leader first went to Gulu. Let me talk about Gulu and the North. And I will be frank, everyone knows I'm a Munyankole. To meet a traffic officer who is a Munyankole, I would rather meet someone from the North, because a Munyankole will ask for 100,000. Someone from the North will ask for 5,000. Somehow, in their weakness, the past regimes, they didn't have a corrupt culture. And I did an activity in the North, and I noticed the people from the North are the most sort of they didn't have that thing of corruption. Corruption was here in Uganda first, and every Uganda knew Baganda as suspicious in it. But when the Banyankole came, they have even showed worse appetite for money. And these Langiza actually is dominant in their government. Somehow, whichever their weakness was not corruption. And service delivery was good enough. So now these NRM, like I told you, they destroyed FDC with money. Now they've also gone to plant, you know, like this thing of, we call it in Uganda, nziro kusiga nziro demon, like I'm bad already, you are saying I'm corrupt. Why don't you also have, like, they will literally find me down there, fix money, and I also become corrupt so that I cannot speak out. You get it? So you wouldn't be surprised why the headquarter of now distribution of money is in.
So link it to the new political formation.
No, I'm telling you, all those new political formation is not that they are thinking of coming up with ideology built on ideology, like I've told you, like my Labour Party's ideology, is how much will we go to get out. General Mhozi told you that they formed the NUP to counter FDC. Now NUP also escaped.
What do you expect him to say really?
No, NUP, it was a formation because he told you that FDC was a more credible organization. But that's what I'm showing you, having a bad heart that this thing of like, let's lose it all. Let's lose Uganda than someone.
To what extent do these opposition own their mistakes? This exodus, for example, the case of DF, it came from, one would say, the bad politics or the mismanagement, or... That's
the vice I'm trying to, let me finish the cycle of the vice.
Please do.
From NUP, when NUP started, after they sponsored it, but also them, they got the foundation, because they know the core character. Now they have their foundation. Then they infiltrate NUP with 500 million, the one which made Mpuga leave. That is money also, which disorganized. The DF, Democratic Front, has been founded on a bad spirit of 500 million. You get it? Definitely. This one of Eco Party of Nsereko, what do you think they want? Money, state money. Then you've seen all these formations. PFF. Now you see even the worst is the bill which they've created, that we have to agree to give you resources, and they are, this movement, NRM, they got these funds from Libya, elsewhere. They didn't get this money from Uganda. But they are bad heart. They don't want us, other political parties, to organize outside
Because the political parties are not supposed to receive money from government, really, because these are institutions that can make means that can...
Exactly, it should be even more independent from government, then they mobilize outside. But now they've curtailed outside mobilization towards elections. They even send out their spies to find out. Right now they monitor any money coming in dollars from outside. Now, how you've crippled the whole system. Yeah? So they are responsible. They are bad-hearted. I've told you, if you see their bad hearts of the nation, like to kill the nation, to me it's worse than UPC, because if UPC could see them try to formulate and they allow them to form, their bad hearts cannot let any other Ugandan organization thrive.
They learned that.
No, but you see Uganda, let me tell you, they are myopic because they think Uganda will stop with them. No, even their children.
You say they are preparing for the next 40 years, but let me come to Joseph Ochieno. To what extent are these political formations really forming the leadership of this country? He says that these are looking for money. To what extent do you think this is so or not so?
I think it's basically built on the foundation that we had in the early part of the debate, and that is the monetization and individualization of politics. The personal merit policy that NRA brought about, me, myself, and I, and the very early part of the grabbing of public assets and resources that came in 1986. I think let's talk about that really. That these guys come from the bushes and they begin to throw people away from public houses. They begin to grab properties, residential. They begin to grab, commercial properties. They begin to grab public organizations like banks and many of these other things. Then they continue then to grab anything they can lay hands on. If you go into the details, that later, within 2 years, the politics of privatization, where you ask what happened to Uganda Railways, you ask what happened to the Uganda Transport Bus Company, you ask what happens to Uganda Airlines, you ask what happens to Uganda Commercial Bank. All those, it's not only that where there are deals to sell these things to foreigners, but many of them were actually deals to basically enrich a few individuals. And in fact, few credible leaders of UPM and later from NASA, like people like his dad, many of the people who moved away very early on, and I know two prominent national friends whose parents were founding members of NASA. I know a particular friend of mine who I hardly regard as a family that will come onto national television and say, look, our parents were responsible for supporting Ender in the bush, including doing this clandestine kind of stuff, Okay. But very early on, their parents, because for whatever wrong reasons they supported NRA, they said to Museveni that, no, we didn't support you. There's a particular friend of mine whose father rejected a pickup early, and the father thought it was a bribe. And Museveni said that, look, I didn't support you in order to get public resources. Where are you getting these cars from?
So then what next for the opposition? Because of time, what next for the opposition? Because you're gearing up into an election year. As things stand, it looks like the opposition has a lot of challenges.
I have said,
what do you do?
I have said again and again, and Rogers and I are having conversation amongst this plus many others, that we need to find people who are genuinely Uganda nationalists. We need to find people who are genuinely driven by values. It may not happen in the next 12 months, but we need to be able to build a coalition of like-minded Ugandans, not only within the opposition, but we hope people like Comrade which get delivered, so that they recognize that Uganda is much more important than NRA, so that we were able to have, a coalition of responsible Ugandans who think beyond self, but nation first.
Okay.
I think it is hard because I get worried the number of recent political parties and organizations that have now re-emerged. I've said, including your program, that we need more leaders rather than more political parties. But unfortunately, at the moment, we have more political parties, partly and primarily for the polls raised by Rogers, but a foundation built by Ender. It's going to be difficult. Okay. But whatever happens, for those of us who are in these positions, who get opportunities, we should do our level best to make sure that, we cleanse ourselves away from politics of money and materialism and refocus on policy ideas, and remember that, look, our children's children must continue to own part of this republic and this republic in whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman here called Chikomeko who says, thank you, Honorable Ochieno. That's particularly to you.
Thank you.
We are coming to the end of this conversation. I want to hear the parting shots from these gentlemen. I'll start with you, Major. What are your parting shots as you also respond to some of the messages that have been submitted?
You know that I'm very good at parting shots. I don't want to start debate from a parting shot. I know of my colleagues who start debates out of parting shots.
Not these two, though.
Now, the other comment is a bullet point. My good O.B. Rogers says NRM has bad heart. It is bad-hearted. Of course, these are statements that are not measurable. And I would advise Rogers, who went through a good school, who knows English, not to do that. Because you can't measure bad-heartedness. In bad-hearted, gram what? It's like throwing words anyhow. They are not measurable, they are not quantifiable. You just throw it out.
But you know what he means, I think.
No, that is a very unmeasurable. You can't measure such. So the other thing is he's saying that NRM grabbed public houses. I don't know which one he's talking about. Because I was there when Kampala was overtaken. The houses that we got were houses left by the army, whom we had overthrown and they had run away. And the houses were given in an orderly way. There was an allocation committee chaired by Fred Mwesige, who is now ambassador in Tanzania, to allocate houses. And it was allocated according to ranks. Who goes in the one left by Tito Kelo, who goes in the one which was formerly by Oyito Jok, who goes where, okay? That was it. But the civil servants who were in their houses, in Nakasero, in Bugolobi Flats, wherever, nobody was thrown out of the house. So I don't know whether he's talking of government houses who themselves were the people we found there, who stayed in it. Others even grew later to be permanent secretaries in NRM. So some of these words, really we need to throw them with qualified. Now, my parting shot is that, I'm saying this again, that we talk so much about dictatorship, about violations of rights, about all this. But I like to still quote that not long ago, Kenyan Martha came here in the case of Kizza Besigye. She wanted to participate as a lawyer here. There was a bit of haggle to give her a practicing certificate, but she got it, and she represented Kizza Besigye. She went to Tanzania. Tanzanian put her at the airport in Kiswahili, said, simama hapa, Rudy, stand here, get back to the plane. Our own Agatha, who had opened parliament to its core, it was her right democracy. She went to Tanzania. So colleagues, when you think that Uganda, we are worse off, it's like wrestling. They said when you watch it, don't try it at home. Watch it and keep it there. So we are by far democratic and respecting human rights. Try it in any other country. You'll be told, instead of giving you a practicing certificate to go to court martial, you are put at the airport and said, Wuku.
Don't even give her a seat.
So are we that bad?
Thank you. Mr. Barigayomwe, your parting shots.
Yeah, in a relationship to that, what my senior member is saying. Yeah, and I like, one time President Museveni made a joke that he's the best dictator in Africa because of election and everything. Yeah, we should, which my senior should appreciate what seemingly peace which we have. But definitely for us as experts of conflict, what we see coming, we also have to tell the nation it is a possibility. From the debate we say those are indicators of people celebrating people's death. I would want to tell the members of the NRM that the laws they are making, I like what Major retired say that we don't need judge. To me, I remember advising, and even I said, why don't you make me your consultant, then I'm secretary. You better arrest your own candidate. They don't need that. These people have performed. They don't need these military engagements to scare us at a time when they've liberated. They say they've liberated the nation. To me, I see what is at stake with the NRM leaders is the legacy. Actually, when I came, I'm at pain trying to protect this legacy, because for me, I call them, and he knows rightly, they are my fathers. I want to protect their legacy, because I would feel proud to be a son of a decorated general, like why I studied my doctorate in South Africa. Everyone associated with the ANC is proud.
Thank you.
But legacy, look at your legacy. Do laws which will protect your legacy.
Professor,
Don't be selfish.
because of time, I'm going to stop you there. Honorable Joseph Ochieno, in a minute, your parting shot.
Yeah, I think it would be very dangerous for Ugandans to celebrate simply because something has happened worse in Kenya. And to compare us with Tanzania simply because our people went ahead and got brutalized in Tanzania, something that I denounced much earlier, although CCM, our sister parties before NRA even was born, is an error. Just like sometimes once in a while people claim that, oh, you don't do this in Rwanda. I think that must be rejected. No, this is Uganda, this is my country. Our standards must be Ugandan standards, must be international standards. And before NRA came, we had a standard and it worked and it functioned. So I think that we need basically a reawakening. We need to have a sense of humility and take a sense of responsibility and say that no, whatever happens after 40 years of NRA, there are certain areas where, whether they like it or not, they bungled crudely. But just a last point, I know that a second, this thing about allocation of resources, I know. It's on record that NRA chased people, particularly untargeted people, both public servants, and it's a fact, that is on record, including Bugolobi Flats. By the way, a renowned professor, Emunyankole without prejudice, I'm saying, has said in a plano like this, where he himself was coming from Dar es Salaam as I think has just done his PhD, and he saw in Bugolobi Flats properties being dropped down from somebody from the north, and an NRA people taking over. And that is in 1986, 87. It was not for my word. I just don't want to go into the details publicly. These things happen. We need to heal, acknowledge, find a way, and like Roger said, what is it that we do to make sure that there are no repeats?
Thank you so much. This is the Hotline Show. We've come to the end of this conversation. I was privileged to be joined by Professor Rogers Barigayomwe, a professor of politics and law, but also the chairperson of Labour Party in Uganda. I also had Honorable retired Major Pollar Awich, Director External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement, and of course a UPC President, that is Joseph Ochieno. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you again tomorrow morning. We shall have Council Aaron Kiza on set at exactly 8 a.m. So please don't miss that conversation. Tomorrow morning at exactly 8 a.m. Council Aaron Kiza will be here with us. From the entire team, God bless you and good evening, Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues,